Let's take a closer look at the Hasbro Black Series Phase 2 Clone Trooper electronic helmet.
Varykino, living the Star Wars life.
Hello there, and welcome back to the Varykino YouTube channel. So today I have a new unboxing from Hasbro. We have the Black Series Phase 2 Clone Trooper electronic helmet. Very excited to see this one arriving here in New Zealand in the last couple of days. It's one that I was very excited. We love the Black Series range of helmets, so I'm so glad we're finally getting Clone Trooper helmets from this range. Just giving you guys a look at the packaging here, just the fantastic classic white Clone Trooper helmet here. Obviously this is kind of the new era of Black Series packaging with this kind of slice down the side with the cool artwork here. And yeah, I'm really keen to get stuck into it, but I'm just going to give you guys a look at the details on the box here. So nice big renders of the pictures. We've got sort of a bit of a blueprint bit down here. On the back, we've got a little bit more text and detail. It says, Phase 2 Clone Trooper electronic helmet. Electronically distorts wearer's voice to sound like a Phase 2 Clone Trooper. So, not so much on the sounds, a little bit more on the voice distortion. I guess like some of the other helmets, it says adjustable fit for most head sizes. And then right down here at the bottom, it says, realistically detailed, screen-inspired reproduction of a Phase 2 Clone Trooper's helmet. So one of the other things you might notice here is that this says Star Wars Clone Wars with the yellow stripe. Now we know Hasbro uses sort of basically a color stripe to differentiate between different franchises, like Rogue One has a different color, The Mandalorian and so forth. So I think this is really interesting because when I immediately see this helmet, I think of Revenge of the Sith, you know, the place that we saw these guys first. But this is actually a Clone Wars version, specifically the sort of Dave Filoni Clone Wars animated series. So there's going to be a little bit of further detail when I get it out about what specific details might make this one different to an Episode 3 helmet, and a little bit about, because we see these in the Obi-Wan Kenobi show as well. But for now, that's just a look at the box. Very exciting. So I guess we'll get stuck into it. I've just cut the sellotape just so I can get straight into it. And you can just see the top here. We've got a bit of a side shot of the helmet. And you can see the New Zealand price sticker of $2.99. Locally, this is the same price as a Bo-Katan helmet, despite the fact that it is a fair bit bigger when you look at them side by side. So very excited to see that this was not very expensive compared to some of the other helmets that are smaller. So I guess we'll get stuck in. I know these things are always a little bit hard to get out. So I'm got a little bit of help on hand to get this out of the box. So just going to get stuck in and show you guys on the inside. So we've got the standard sort of inserts and things like that. We've got some pamphlets and things like that we'll go through. And I'm just going to get this bit out. And we can see our first glimpse of the helmet there. Inside this part, we can see the sort of the top crest there. So I'm going to lift this bit out. And we can see that the helmet's actually wrapped in plastic, which is fabulous. I'm always worried about white helmets that they'll get scratched or something because you can't touch up the paint when it's just pure glossy white plastic. So very excited to see that this is protected from scratches. So I guess let's just lift this one out. Sometimes these things are a bit fiddly, so let's see how hard this is going to be. Okay, there we go. Pop the box on the floor and then we can get into this now. So let's pull this plastic off and get a look at this thing. Woo! That is fabulous. Okay, just get this out of the way and let's take a look at it. Sorry if there's a few strands of cat fluff. We have cats. Okay, so first impression, this thing is heavy. You know, we've owned a few of the other Black Series helmets, and this thing is got a good heft to it compared to some of the other helmets, as I know makes sense because it is a big helmet with lots of details and components. And I love how this is just such a fabulous white glossy finish. That's just so much fun. So it's probably reflecting all the lights and things like that on this. We've got sort of the black trim here, visor, grey sort of teeth that are not cutouts. That's just sort of flat plastic, so if you put your head in this, you won't be able to breathe through those holes. And then we've got sort of the breather bit details on the front. We've got sort of recessed blue stripes here on the side tubes, the ear cups, grey stripe running around the top there, detail here on the back. I assume this is where the battery compartment's going to be. I'll have a look at the booklet in a moment. And we've got these sections here. Yeah, that feels like a button. Okay, cool. I think that's where that is, because that one looks just a little bit different to the one on this side. That one doesn't click. Okay, so I'm guessing that's where the sound's going to be. That's nice and easy to reach and press if you're wearing it. And then you can see this fabulous sort of crest along the top. This looks like a separate piece that is inserted. I don't know how well you can see the just sort of the detail around these parts. It looks like it's inserted really nice and tight and clean there along those edges. That's really nice. Whew, this thing's heavy to pick up. I'm so excited to see this in person. I love the Clone Troopers. You know, I'm always torn with which design, if I like episode 2 or episode 3. And it's kind of fun that this one is the first one that Hasbro's doing as a Clone Trooper. I expect them to do many versions. I do hope to see a Phase 1 Clone Trooper from them, but this is a fun place to start, especially since we saw them in the Obi-Wan Kenobi series. And as if you've seen the show, you might remember, there is a flashback scene to Order 66. And that was kind of famous because that was the first time that these helmets had ever been made physically. In the prequel movies, and obviously in the animated shows, they were CG or cartoons. You know, they weren't made physically. So for Kenobi, they made physical Clone Trooper costumes, including the helmets. So we see that they did a similar thing that they did with the classic original trilogy Stormtrooper helmets and made the tubes, the sort of tube striping, recessed. I hope you guys can see that there. Fabulous blue, really nice and tidy there. So if you are a collector of helmets, or perhaps you might not be aware, the original trilogy blue striping on the Stormtrooper helmets was hand-painted or stickers, depending on the way that you sort of make your fan versions of those helmets. And then when Rogue One came along, they wanted to kind of, I guess, make it a little bit more of a realistic detail and recessed it. So when they made Obi-Wan Kenobi, they followed that idea and made the Clone Trooper stripes recessed. So you can see these are recessed. So that is a difference. If you were hoping for a 100% accurate episode 3 helmet, as the box noted, this is a Clone Wars helmet. There are a few differences. I'm not an expert, so I'm just going to point out the things that I know of. Predominantly, you're going to notice that the shape of the visor around the eyes is a little more angular and sharper. And coincidentally, the grey stripe here, the angle that it comes down here and sort of lines up with that is also the same, in that it's more angular compared to the episode 3 ones. Obviously, as I mentioned, the stripes here. And the front details around here are just a little bit sharper on this version, but we kind of expected that. You know, they've often gone in with modern versions of original designs and just made them a little bit tighter and cleaner to make them look a little bit more sort of as we perhaps would expect them to look. I know sometimes props made for movies are actually not as sort of fancy and clean and tidy as when we look at them up close. If you've ever held a original Stormtrooper helmet from the original trilogy or seen one on display, you know that they don't actually look quite as tidy as perhaps replicas or even fan-made versions. So I'm really liking all how crisp and tight the details are here. If you've ever put together fan-made helmets, you know that these ear cups can be an absolute menace to get them all lined up and tidy. And you can just see just how tight those details are. Obviously, we would expect that from something professionally made, but you can see here, these are all, they look all like individual components. I can see the seams here, and there's no real gapping It looks really nice. You know, modern production techniques means that everything should come out pretty mathematically the same. I know that sometimes you get something that's a bit wonky, but I really like how tight and tidy this is, you know, as you would expect, because they do have a real sort of, I don't know, they look a little bit more technical to me than the original Stormtrooper helmet. They can make them a bit more detailed. The visor looks quite dark from the front, which is fun, but looking through it, from my perspective, I can actually see through to the desk. So let's take a look at the inside. And we can see that this is all sort of fully lined to be sort of an in-world Stormtrooper helmet. It does say that one size fits most. So I'll get my husband to try it on in a bit, and we'll test that theory out. And we can see there's sort of like an adjustable harnessy bit in there, so that you can adjust it if you've got a smaller or bigger head. And you might be able to see just how sort of see-through that visor is if I get the right angle. There we go. You can see that it's pretty easy to see through. I mean, it's still a narrow viewpoint if you've ever worn these sorts of helmets. No, your field of view is reduced, but you can see just how clearly you can see R2-D2 there through that lens. So I guess that's a look at the sort of interior and exterior, and some of the details. It's nice that they've just gone sort of for a simple approach. On camera into my eyes, I can see that sort of little hatching detail. I know that for some versions of the helmets, particularly fan-made ones, this would be like a metal sort of mesh. So air would pass through that. But, you know, this is made to a certain budget, and I think for the price point that looks pretty good. I know there's probably someone out there or a few people that perhaps will go through and upgrade some of these components. Like, this is not cut out metal mesh, that is plastic. It's well done, it looks very tidy, but yes, obviously if you want perhaps, you know, for wearable helmets, if you put a fan in it to kind of, you know, sort of give yourself a bit of air conditioning while wearing for long periods of time, having these cutouts might be more important to you. But I think, you know, certainly for me, this is going to be sitting on a shelf for display. I don't need to worry about whether those are breathable or not. And I don't really know how you'd quite fit a fan in here. It's, you know, pretty well sort of decoed. I mean, not to say that you can't just, you know, be a bit just sort of hot glue something in there. But yeah, let's get the batteries in and test out this sort of voice altering effect, because I'm quite keen to see what that sounds like. So let's get stuck in and get the batteries in. Okay, so I've taken the back battery plate off and put the batteries in. I'm just going to quickly show you guys the booklet that describes how to do that. This is obviously just the standard booklet inside here, and this panel shows how you take this plastic component off the back. Inside there is a screwdriver sort of opened compartment, so you will need a screwdriver, and 3 AAAs, which are not included, so you'll need those 2 things on hand if you want to test out the voice effects. And we can see here it also talks about, well, displays how you can remove and adjust the sort of the strap in there, so that you get sort of a comfortable fit should you want to wear it. So those are fun details there. And then here, just a very simple diagram. Button on the right of the helmet if you're wearing it, to sort of, you know, give the speech effect there. So very simple diagrams there. So I'll show you guys the back. As I suspected, just sort of clips off there. We can see the battery compartment there. It was a little bit of a job to get, you know, fingernail under there and kind of hook it out. You need kind of strong nails, or ask somebody else to do that. So yeah, nice and easy, one panel. I think the detail fits in there really quite nicely. It's not too intrusive with the overall look and design of the helmet, and hidden on the back, you'll never see it if you put this thing on a shelf. So nice one-piece plastic, slip on and off. The only thing that I've noticed on this helmet so far is the black paint doesn't quite go to the end here. You can just see a tiny bit, but that's basically the only sort of critique I have about the painting is this panel here at the back, just the little ends there. But honestly, it's right at the back. You're never really going to see it. And if it really, really bugs you, you could probably do a little bit of a touch-up job there. So this thing's a little bit heavy for me to maneuver, so I'm just going to see about snapping this back in. Little feet in there, and snaps back in, pretty nice and easy. Okay, so now we've got the batteries in, we can test the right-hand button. So that's kind of a little bit of a sort of a static burst type noise, sort of an on and off, to note that you've switched on and off the voice changer component of the helmet. So I'm going to test it out by talking into the helmet, and hopefully you guys will be able to hear the voice modulation effect. Okay, so the voice modulation is on. I don't even really need to put my head all the way in. I'm just talking into the bottom. So hopefully you guys can hear that through the microphone. And then if I turn it off, you can just hear my voice normally. So I think that's kind of fun. I don't know how many people will really need to muck around with that. I know that some of the helmets have like cool sound effects that, you know, I think most people would want to sort of put batteries in and test it. But honestly, if you don't really want to put batteries in this or can't be bothered, I don't think it's going to be a big deal, especially if you want this for display rather than wearing it. You have to pick it up and put it on and, you know, do all of that to get the voice modulation. If it had sound effects, you know, like Clone Trooper chatter or something like that, then just having it on the shelf and being able to turn it on and off, that would be cool. But honestly, you know, it's kind of a mixed bag when it comes to electronics in our Star Wars collectibles. Most of the time, I'm just worried about leaving batteries in it and possibly having, you know, sort of leakage issues if I forget that the batteries are in there for too many years. So generally, we don't leave batteries in them. So honestly, the battery effects are not important to us. It's the look, the detail, and just adding this one to our collection that is the draw card for this particular helmet. We don't have any other Clone Trooper helmets on hand to compare this in terms of size to like fan-made ones or some of the older, you know, going back to the prequel era. There were, you know, a small number of licensees back then making Star Wars replicas. So we don't have, unfortunately, any of those on hand to compare it scale-wise. But to my eye, I think this is a fabulous size. While I was putting the batteries in, with the help of my husband, he tested this. He can get it on his head just fine, and he doesn't have the smallest head, you know. So I think that's a pretty good indicator. When it says one size fits most, it generally means most. You know, if you struggle with some particular Star Wars helmets, then you might have an issue with this. But we bought this one for display rather than wearing, so that wasn't an issue. That was just sort of a fun bonus, you know, putting it on and testing the voice modulation and seeing what it looks like from the inside with wearing it. So we'll definitely take some more photos that we'll have up on the website. Might do a little bit of a comparison next to some of the other Hasbro Black Series helmets, just to give you a bit of a sense of scale with this one compared to things like the Bo-Katan or the Mandalorian and things like that, some of the more recent additions to the line. I really hope that they do a lot of color variants, and I know some people might be cynical and just think that that's just, you know, printing money by doing different color variations. They have announced one color variant. I don't know when that one will be released, but the Ahsoka Loyalist with the orange sort of Ahsoka face paint on the front of the helmet has been announced. I am hoping that perhaps for the 20th anniversary of Revenge of the Sith, they might give us a blue 501st paint job, because that is such a prominent part, and we do see those clones in the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, and yeah, I think there's a bunch of them. We have no indication yet if they will give us any of the sort of named clone troopers that have visors or extra bits and pieces on it, you know, like the sort of antenna and things like that of Cody or Bly. I really hope we see those, but I'm sure some creative fans can take this basic white one and you know, create the extra extra bits themselves if they don't want to wait. Overall, I think this is a fantastic helmet. If you love Clone Troopers, I can see this definitely being a worthwhile addition to your collection, especially for this price point. I know not all of the Black Series helmets are a win, some are a miss, but for me personally, I think this one is a win. I think it is absolutely fantastic. You know, you have high hopes when you see these things revealed online. You hope that they live up to expectations when you get them in hand, and this one does. I'm just very, very excited. The details are all there. I really like them. I like this sort of angular, like, I know some people might have wanted the movie version with the softer eyes, but because these are the clone troopers that basically, you know, execute Order 66 and go dark, I like the angular shape. I think that gives them a bit more of a menace to the face, and I am a big fan of the Clone Wars, so I don't really mind either way which version we got. I think this is fabulous, and I'm so excited to add it to my Black Series helmet collection. So thank you so much for watching. We'll have photos up on the website as soon as we can, but for the meanwhile, check out our YouTube channel for other Star Wars unboxings. Hope to catch you in the next video, and may the Force be with you.
If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and give it a like, check out our other videos, and subscribe for alerts about new uploads. Thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.